Folks, welcome to another episode of Metal Mastermind. Co-founder and your co-host, Jason Stallworth, and also co-founder, co-host, the great
Ken Candelas.
Dude.
My dude.
We're here,
What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. It's funny, every time, you and I get together for these podcasts, we always start like kind of doing the podcast before we start recording the podcast. So we're just going to sort of leave, we'll start where we left off just now. And guys, we want to talk to you about what is your next level as a musician. So Ken, what does that even mean? Like the next level as a musician, what does that mean to you, man?
I see it all the time with students on how to just increase your skill set. That's a big part of it. Now, skill set is something that I think is very relatable because everybody can learn a skill. So when you're talking about music, I think a lot of people don't understand that it's not just all talent. It's a lot of time and energy, focused energy, put into a skill that can be developed. So the more you decide you want to get better at a certain thing in music, it's very achievable. It's also recognizing where is the right, place to pivot your attention, so that when you are focusing on increasing to get to that so-called next level of your musicianship or production skills or whatever it is that you're doing it with the intention that is in the right place. I think that's an important step.
I like that. You've talked about that a lot, man. You've said that's been a thread throughout the Ken Candelas, philosophy and conversations that we've had in podcasts, and I've had you always bring up intent, and I want to reiterate that because it's so important. Whatever you're doing, right? And I tell people this in the gym all the time. If you're working a specific body part, you want to train with intent, not just move a piece of weight from point A to point B. You're not really getting a whole lot out of that. But if you have the intent of working that specific muscle, that's what you're targeting. So what we're talking about here musically is that whatever you're doing, if your intent is to become a better vocalist, well, everything that you need to do to become that intent needs to be in mind the entire time, right, that you're going through those vocal exercises, those warm-ups. Next level stuff too, goes beyond just becoming better at what you're doing, whether it's guitar, bass, drums, vocals. I think it, and that's an important part of it, Ken, is super important. You've got to constantly work on your talent, work on increasing your skill level. Now, I think skill level goes far beyond technique. I think it's more about your own creativity and the originality that you're bringing to the table with your music. I kind of put that more on a pedestal than I do even technical skills, because technical skills, they'll get you a long way, but only to a certain point. You've got to create something right, that's new, that's refreshing. But speaking of going even beyond that, what's your next level? You listening, all of you, I want you to think about this. What is your next level as a musician as far as doing something with your music? And it doesn't matter if music is a hobby to you. Maybe you're just learning some cover songs. I want you to think about a next level, okay? Now, a lot of you listening, and this is my hope, this is Ken and I's hope, that you do want to take your music to that next level. So is your next level, to a serious level, is your next level releasing a single? Is that something you've ever done before? Is your next level, hey, you want to play live music? I encourage people to go to open mics and perform, man. Ken, and I'll let you talk about playing live too, because I know you play live in several different projects. You guys know I play live 2 or 3 times a week. That is a skill that is quite different from just learning how to play an instrument or getting really good on an instrument. You can scroll through social media and see people shredding up and down the neck, but getting on stage and performing, and I don't care if it's in front of 1,000 people or 10 people, there's a different skill level, wouldn't you say, Ken?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is recognizing resistance levels in your development, and seeing, if you, to take that one example of performing live, if you're stuck playing the same, content and you're really good at it, but you're playing it only to yourself in your bedroom, versus doing that out live, that's a form of resistance that you had to really overcome. because now it's not putting yourself in the same situation. You're expanding into a outside of your comfort zone in order to grow. And because that, all your nerves are going to start kicking in, the adrenaline is going to start kicking in when you're doing it live. And you're going to have thoughts in your head of like, oh, I got to execute this correctly. I don't want to be made to be a fool, essentially, right? You want to do a good job, and that's going to scare people, right? So you have to, do what you can to grow in the places that you need to grow. I mean, it's I'm using just skill as one example. Many things that you can do. At a certain point, you can be the best songwriter, but if nobody hears it, that's not a song worth listening to then, because you have to get your word out there. You got to get your message out there. The world that you believe in, the world that you want to live in, so be the example of that change that you want to see, right? The next level for a lot of people is, hey man, getting your stuff out there. How do you do that? One of the things that I really recommend is take a look at how businesses do it. They create their business plan so that they can formulate a strategy out of what they already have, what they need to do to get to the next, threshold of their boundaries. Business plans are actually really helpful. I do them for my own music every now and then so that I can just assess where I'm at and where do I need to focus my attention. Being one person, you can't, just leave everything up to, I'll do it when I feel it. Like I can do it. You just you have to divvy up your time and say, okay, no, I'm going to work on this time. I'm going to work on this that time. And it really helps to have a team to do that. In the beginning, it's, you could probably use a friend or family member just to kind of keep you on track, or you can set yourself some alarms for yourself. But I think when you have, team members to work with, or band members, if you want to call them that, that can really also help you too, because now you're responsible for the people that are around you too. And that adds a little bit of more pressure, and you need to have a little bit of that pressure in order to continue to building and uplifting yourself and taking action on the things that matter to move the goalpost.
I like that, dude. Yeah. And you brought up some very good points as far as moving your music forward. The old days, the old way of doing it was to get your band out there and play live shows, which I still think you should play live shows, but get on a label. And if you didn't make it on the label, well, tough luck. You just didn't make it. And a lot of people still carry that outdated mentality. Can you get on a label? Yes, you absolutely can. There are labels signing bands every day. And there are probably, I would guess, some good labels to be on. Right. However, as a band or as a solo musician, I wouldn't bank on that happening the way you want it to happen. People have this misconception. Well, if I get on a label, I'll be just fine. Well, guess what? Guess who's getting most of your profits for your hard work and your creativity? That label is. Why don't you learn how to do what that label's doing, aka learn how to market your own music? You collect those profits and you have the control over your music and how much you get paid. And of course, what you're going to write about and how the songs go. Because sometimes labels can come in and tell you, well, this is the trend right now in metal, so you need to do this. And that might not be your style. You
really can't leave it up to everybody else these days. You have to learn how to do it yourself first so that you understand what somebody else's job entails. And then if you're going to be able to delegate, you know exactly what you need to delegate, because you can't just be an artist nowadays. It's impossible to do that. Unless you've got so much dough that you can just sit back and just make art all the time. Right. It's not realistic. It's really a Disney fairy tale, if you want to say it that way, because people want to be able to make art all the time, but we've got life, we've got to deal with that. And if you want to be able to eat off of what you do, you got to start looking at it as a business and treating it like a business. It's not going to be something that is going to be a hobby for you anymore. And if you're in that stage, the next level for you is taking it from a hobby and making it a profession for you and taking it seriously. This is if you feel like music is something that chose you, it calls out to you, that you have this calling that you have to fulfill. I hear you. And Jason and I, we've got that too. It's in there, but we don't just leave it up to hope. We've also made every attempt in our lives ever since we saw the opportunity to change it for ourselves to begin doing that. And you have to do that for yourself too. You have to really want it. You have to really go and say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I got to figure out how to do it. I don't know how it'll happen, but I'm just going to start trying to figure it out. And over time, things begin to show their ways to you, and you learn how to do things, this way or that way, and you learn from so many other people along the way, and you're going to find that expanding growth becomes also exponential too. You learn more and more as time goes on, and you learn more in the scale of things as well. So I think it's just very interesting. It's a very wise story to look at things as building your own castle from the ground up, and not just building tall, but building wide and strong. So that you can have a place that all the nooks and crannies to. How it works, the mechanisms, the gears, the cogs in the machine, how they all interlink with each other. And when things go wrong, you're not paralyzed by the things that go wrong. You can adjust, you can adapt, you can, pivot. These are such important skills inside the music industry and outside the music industry that we learn from other industries and other walks of life. On what's important in being a musician. I think that's so important. I can't express how paramount I think that is.
Yeah, and if that's your next level, and that's what this episode's all about, guys. What is your next level? Only you can determine that. Only you can decide what that is. And if you feel like you have that deep calling, like I'm a musician, this is all I want to do. Ken, you mentioned you've got to want it, first of all, bad enough to take the actions to step out and get very uncomfortable. This is the problem I see with a lot of not only musicians, but people in general. They want a better life. They want to do something, but it's so much easier to, well, it's the music industry. It's their fault. I can't make a living. Or it's my boss, when you get up to the top of the house, it's to this or to that, or I'm not this, or whatever the case may be. What you should be saying, first of all, eliminate that mentality altogether, because it will get you nowhere, and you'll just continue blaming and making excuses, and you won't move forward with your music or with your life for that matter. Instead, tell yourself there is no reason why you can't learn and put in the time and get very uncomfortable and dive in and do these things that you need to do to push yourself forward. You will fall down sometimes. You will fall down many times. I have fallen down, trust me, many, many times in my trying to be, an entrepreneur with my music and many other things. Since 2010, I didn't become full time until 2020. So I've been working at this whole concept of being on my own, because I always wanted to be a full time musician. I didn't really care, in what manner that I was a full-time musician, whether I was touring with a band or just making money off my solo projects or whatever. And I had some other entrepreneurial desires as well that kind of fit with that. So I've been at this for over 10 years before I took the leap. And when I'll be honest with you guys, when I took the leap, I was not ready. I was not financially ready. I just had it. I'm like, I'm going to put my back against the wall. This will happen. And I love what our kind of I guess she's still our coach, because we met in her class, Leah McHenry. She just simply says, you have to figure it out. You will figure it out. And you have to make the decision that you're going to figure it out. There are no excuses. You can't blame anybody else or any industry. It's on you to figure out how to do that. So that's important, guys. That's super important. We want to see you guys move forward. And, if that's not your dream, though, I want us to talk to the folks real quick that maybe full-time musicianship isn't their lifelong dream, but they do want to make some kind of progress and really go to that next level. So like, what is that next level? I mean, let's say you don't care to be a full-time musician. Do you still want to release a single? Would you still like to play maybe in a cover band on the weekends or play live solo gigs or something like that? What's the next level if something like that, if the goal isn't as lofty?
Well, I think you're going to have to, honestly, you have to be really honest with yourself. You have to say, if what I'm doing is something I want to keep doing, because if I decide I'm going to put more energy and time invested into this craft, and then I'm having already shaky ground on the why I'm doing it, that's a recipe for wasting time and a disaster, honestly. Because then you're going to devote time to this, and then all of a sudden you're going to, since you're not as serious, you're not going to be focused enough to really make progress, because you're on shaky ground already. And I would say that, okay, if you want to get better at doing the music thing, but you don't want to devote yourself to the music, then I would honestly say, maybe this is not something that you should really focus your time on. Because I think, honestly, people who want to do music, they see themselves as musicians that have to do it. You like, it's not something that you can just look as a pastime. For most of us, I think for most of us, we're like, music is a big part of our lives. And if you want to get to that next level, I think there comes a desire to do more than it is that you're doing right now. So it's hard for me to get on the level of somebody who perhaps wants to do it as a hobby and not necessarily improve themselves to get to another plateau that they've been seeking to overcome. Because then what is it for? Is really where I come down to. What are you doing this for? And be honest with yourself. Like, why are you wasting your time, or are you really doing this because you see yourself living a life that if you don't, you're going to regret it? What's the answer to that? Yeah, it's a hard question. You got to ask that question though, because if you don't, and you're being a softball around it, you're not going to you're not going to make the necessary moves in life that are the most efficient, that are the most dynamic to what it is that you seek your happiness from. So I would say you got to ask yourself the question, why then are you doing what you're doing? If you don't have a solid answer for that, I think you need to either revisit your roots, or you maybe need to consider that this is maybe not something that you want to do.
And I think the person that you might be talking to there, Ken, and that is great advice. And that's almost kind of like a gentle kick in the rear end to say, hey, you need to do a little bit more than what you're doing now, in regards to your goal. Because I think a lot of there's two camps. I think some people are like, well, this is just a hobby because they're not satisfied where they're at as a musician. And they don't really think it's in the cards for them. So, we'll tell ourselves, we'll stay in our comfort zone and say, well, it's just a hobby anyway, not a big deal. And our challenge to you is, well, yes, you can go to the next level. And Ken and I, we're going to push you into that next level. So whether you like it or not. Now, there's the other person that they see someone playing guitar, shredding, or playing double bass drums, and they see these people doing it, and they even listen to the music. They like it, they enjoy it, and like, okay, well, this is a hobby, but they're getting frustrated because they can't make progress. However, they're not putting in the adequate time needed, and instead of practicing today or whatever time it is, after work, whenever, they're doing something else, and they've got like 10 other hobbies going on, yet they're frustrated as to why they can't improve on, playing guitar, singing, whatever the case may be. And I think, your question is extremely appropriate to someone like that, especially if they're frustrated and they're not making progress. Well, what is your why? If you got all this other stuff going on, or you just rather watch Netflix or play video games or whatever the case is, and you don't really want to practice guitar, you just want the result. then, it's not to say you can't do it. I mean, we're not saying, well, you can't play music because it's not as important to you. That's not, you do whatever you want to do, but we're just addressing the important question that we want everyone, and Ken, you and I included, we constantly remind ourselves why. We don't have to ask ourselves why, but we have to remind ourselves why we're doing what we do, with music and with Metal Mastermind here. Our mission here is to help you guys continue developing and creating your own style.
I think you nailed it there, because it's one of those questions where you have to, you can tell a lot about yourself and what it is that you really want when you come to a point of resistance in what it is that you're doing, and the decisions that you make when you get to that point. You were just mentioning, Netflix, right? And if you're a hobbyist and you say, man, maybe I want to take it to the level where I can, make this a thing, right? And I'm like, okay, maybe I want to give it a real try. But at that moment, that one weekend, you're excited, you're practicing your ass off, and you could have like a 6-hour practice session and all that good stuff. And then, the next weekend you start to say, oh man, that was a good, practice run, but this time I don't know, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling motivated. And then you decide you want to take the Netflix route and you want to watch a movie instead. Okay, well, there is your problem. You're already giving in. If this was that serious to you, you have to say, no, I need to continue doing this. You know how many times, Jason, like I want to just sit down and buy a Nintendo Switch from Amazon and play the new Legend of Zelda for like 145 hours. Like I want to do that. I want to do all of that. I want to buy the Switch from Amazon and play Zelda for hours on end, but I can't, because I have this mission in my life that's called Homeric. And I need to make sure that I keep working on that and keeping that alive, because if I don't, I live a life of regret. And I know it's exactly that this is the thing that I want to make a reality in my life. So if you don't have that determination where this thing that's in your head has to come out, and you're going to find a way through all the ups and downs to make it happen, then why are you complaining? It doesn't make any sense to me. You have no reason to complain if you decide that Netflix is more important than making your music right now. That's how I look at it.
Now, if you've been practicing for the last 2 hours and you want to take a break with, the Mr. or Mrs. or your other half or whatever and do something else, yeah, I get it. Fine. We're not saying that, you've got to 24/7 be working all the time on your music. Although, there might be seasons where you need to do that. Ken, you and I are both working on albums, or on albums here. You've got the new Homeric album. You got a lot going on with that. I'm wrapping up mine, and I'm going to be making a lead guitar course right after. So I am going to have to, for a season, maybe a couple of weeks, is just not really do a whole lot of anything else, meaning even YouTube videos for my channel and for Metal Mastermind might not be making a whole lot of content during that time, because I'm going to be zeroed in and like razor sharp focused on the thing that I need to do right now to get it done. Ken, you and I were talking earlier. I saw this quote or comment from Tim Ferriss, the author. He became famous from his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Great book, by the way. But he's like, you can give someone like a day to do something, to do a major project, and they'll find a way to get it done. In doing so, they'll eliminate anything that's unnecessary to get that done, and they'll only focus on the core things. Now, you could give that same project to someone and give them 6 days to get it done. Say, hey, you've got 6 days to get this done, and they will take the entire 6 days to get that done. And in the interim, they'll probably do a lot of things that are unnecessary. The point is you've got to zero in and focus on what you need to get done. Give yourself a time frame, a time limit, And that's all you're going to focus on during that time. You're not worried about Netflix or video games or going to hang out with this person or going to have beers and whatever, you know. I like having beers. Ken and I both do. We will have beers. But I'm just saying, for that time that you need to finish that song or finish that recording, or maybe you want to go through like a burst and get your skill level up to speed, you know. So you got to put in the time to make that happen. Outside of that, when you do balance things out, you know, I believe that you need to be consistent with, you know, continuing to grow as a musician and continuing to get more creative, right? So it's not something that, well, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and be hardcore, but then I'm not going to touch my instrument or practice my voice lessons for, you know, 2 weeks after that. You definitely don't want to do that either. So there is a balance in life, but there are also seasons where you may need to buckle down if you want to get something done that's really meaningful to you.
Yeah, I think we all struggle with this concept of bandwidth. How much data, how much data can we process at one time? And I think when you're young, you have a little bit more of that, and you feel like you can tackle more things at a time. And maybe that's because of energy levels or whatever. I think recognizing your bandwidth is very important for that entire example that you just mentioned, because it's going to gauge where can you put your focus. And this is why, you know, so many people, when they get to a certain point, especially if they're like, you know, a success, they can't do everything. So they have a limited amount of time and attention that can be spent, and they have to make it count for the things that matter to them. So that's why they hire, you know, assistants, and they delegate things to their team and all this kind of stuff, because they can't be doing all those tasks anymore. In the beginning, you know, you're doing this thing, you have to, the thing that we have as indie musicians from the get-go is that we have freedom to make what it is that we want and how we want to make it, right? There's no record label, you know, pressing their thumb on you, trying to make it happen in this time frame. The only person that can do that is really you, which is a benefit and a curse. Because the benefit is, yes, you don't have that pressure. The curse is you could be stuck in a loop, you know, of unproductive workloads for a very, very long time, because now you're not setting yourself the dimensions that you need to operate in. It's like you know, the analogy of painting with a canvas rather than painting with an infinite white wall that stretches for miles. You know, it's like if you have a big white wall, you don't know where to start. There's so much white wall that you can just paint. But if you have that one canvas, you see the boundaries of what it is that you have to work with, and you can really like strategize and be creative on how to tackle that entire thing. So the limitations are good. The limitations show us ways that we can be creative within those boundaries. Breaking those boundaries in the sense of growth and growing from you know, one level to the next, that's all perspective. That's all you know, that takes a little bit of time and review, most importantly, reflection on where have you come from and where are you now, because that's really the biggest measure of success in your you know, your own right. You have to take a look at what it is that you've done, because anybody else doing other things, everybody else has different situations, different upbringings, right? You can't compare yourself to other people who we're so different in so many ways. So why do that and just then not just compare it yourself? You know, where were you here at this point, and where have you grown from since then? That's how I would measure moving forward to get to that next level.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that up about not comparing yourself to other people. The only person you got to compare yourself to is who you were yesterday or a year ago or 10 years ago, and see how much you've grown. Again, not only from a technical standpoint, but more so from a creative standpoint. You know, the things that I created my first album when I released in 2013, which I'm still very proud of that album, Apocalyptic Dreams. But, you know, the stuff I'm creating, and I'm not going to say it's better or worse or whatever, but there's a different vibe to it. I've grown as a musician. I feel like I have anyway. And again, it's not about playing faster or any of that stuff. I'm not saying
Right.
don't work on that, do work on that, or singing higher or whatever, but sometimes I think we might cap out on the technical stuff at some point, or you might kind of, I don't want to say burn out. I don't know if that's the correct term, but as a guitar player, you might get to the point where you can only play so fast. And at what point does it become just a bunch of notes? Unless you're putting some really a sense of melody and some creativity behind it. Otherwise, you just sound like everybody else you scroll through and is just shredding a bunch of notes. Like, okay, great, more of the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
So at some point you want to grow into your own creation, this thing that you've been building your entire life. Everything you've done on guitar or with your voice or with drums or bass or whatever instrument you play, songwriting, all that you've done has led you to this point now, and you're creating something new from those experiences. So you can't really compare yourself to other people. Somebody might play guitar faster than you, and it's not that you don't want to get better at that. Sure, hey, get better if that's what you want to do as far as speed goes, but maybe they're not as creative as you are. And of course, that's very subjective. But remember this, guys, no one can do what you do exactly the way you do it. No one can do that. Now, somebody might be able to play a series of notes that you play, but the way that you play it, guys, the feeling and emotion that you put behind it and what you create and everything that surrounds that, when you start making it into an actual song, no one can do that the way you do that, because that's from you and you're an individual. You're created uniquely. There's no one else in this world just like you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of also rediscovering your inner child.
I like
That
that.
Yeah, because let me tell you this, right? When I was doing audio engineering in my early career, this is around, like 2011. I got into audio engineering because I didn't get into the it's not that I didn't get, I actually got into the program that I wanted to get into for college, but I didn't have the financial backing to be able to go to that college. And so I decided, okay, let me not go for music performance, but let me learn audio technology or music production technology, because I thought that was a good backup to learning just drums, because that's what I was going to go to school for. I was going to go and just learn about drums. And so audio engineering just kind of fell into my lap.
Nice.
And I ended up liking audio engineering so much that I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a recording engineer, or, I want to do this stuff. And this is so cool. And I, can make stuff sound pretty good. And, I went down that road for a while, for many years. And I did 6 years of schooling for audio engineering because of it, and 5 internships because of it, until I came back to my ground roots of saying, when the pandemic hit, I realized, like, why am I doing all this audio engineering for? Like, I really realized that all my efforts in audio were just so that I can be better at making my own music. And I think I needed to go through that phase of just exploring the possibilities of what I could do in audio, to then come back to something that I was already doing when I was in 6th grade, which was making stories, making, worlds, and building this out for myself, and wanting to explore music, because in my world, I wanted to create an original soundtrack for it. That's really where it comes from.
Nice.
So I said, all right, you know what? Maybe that inner child in me is really speaking out to me at this moment. And that's why I devoted more time to reorchestrating my entire album. And then, me and Jason here, we decided to do Metal Mastermind, and, take what we've learned and pass our wisdom from doing it, what it is that we do and love to do. So I think it's, if you're struggling to figure out your why and all of this, I think, just how were you when you were a kid? What were the natural tendencies for yourself as a kid that, made you dream and made you want to do what it is that you do? And if that's the thing that, we're talking about, which is music, then seek it out, like give it a real shot. Don't be so scared about, putting yourself out there, because every musician has to do it anyway. If it helps you to think that, hey, you're a needle in a haystack, yeah, okay, so who's gonna hear it? Whatever, like do it, like just get it out there, and get your first one if it's your first one, because your first one is always going to be the most memorable. It's kind of like, your first kiss when you're a kid, right? It's like those types of experiences are, you can't downplay them, man. Like releasing your first album is a big deal. You're publishing something.
It's huge. Yeah, it's really
huge. And it's a milestone in your career and your achievements. So take it seriously, and like put out the product that it is that you want. Don't let obviously perfection paralyze you, but like do what it is that you got to do to make it so that you don't have the excuse of, because of this I can't do it, or because of that I can't do it. Find a way to make it happen. Stop making excuses for yourself that that just don't lead you anywhere but disappointment. Stop doing those things. We're all habitual creatures. Everything is on autopilot half the time. Recognize that there are things in your life that you can actively change, and you want to get better. Let's find a way to make that happen. Look for the resources, look for the tools, look for the people. I mean, half the time, that's why I'm so excited about Metal Mastermind's Discord community, because it's like-minded people that are in the same room talking to each other. Some of them are collaborating with each other, but if anything, we're like a family that keeps each other in check. And we have this thing going on right now, which Jason and I used to do, which is an accountability buddy. That's how we started doing Metal Mastermind. We were like, you know what? Jason and I, we were like, okay, let's just have weekly meetups, and we'll just call it Mastermind meetups. And then we ended up calling it Metal Mastermind meetups. And then we ended up saying, hey, this sounds like a business. Let's try and do that. And now everybody else is trying to do that with the accountability buddy, which is amazing. So look, that was a system that worked for us, because when you're accountable to somebody else, it makes you want to do things, and I think sometimes that's why people, whenever they have a family that they have to take care of, they feel so compelled to do what it is that they have to do, because they're accountable for those people that are in their lives.
You will find a way to do that.
You'll find a way to make it happen. You need that urgency. That urgency is the fire that makes you take action. So think about, what is it that you need to happen in your life for you to make things urgent for yourself, and see if you can shortcut your way to doing that, to make, and of course don't go off the rails and, say screw you to everybody. Have some balance with that. Everything in life needs balance, but find a way to entice yourself in order to either motivate you to really take action, or give you a strategy moving forward. Maybe if you're the type of person that needs to see an outline of what it is that you got to get done, you got to make a checklist, like do that first, then, do the business plan that I was talking about, your own artist analysis, and see where are your loopholes and where do you got to plug in, those holes so that your ship doesn't sink. Yeah, I mean, those are things that come to mind thinking about this, and how you can really start changing the narrative that you're not the victim here anymore. It's not that life is doing this to you. You can do things to life to make a change in that, if you really want it, but you have to really want it. You really do.
Yeah, you got to want it. You got to extremely want it bad enough to not only start and do what you need to do, but not give up. Because oftentimes, Ken, you and I both know, and we're going to get on a lighter note here in a second here, but one more thing to that, though, is you can't just go at it for a few weeks or even a few months, like, oh, this is not working, and then you turn back to blaming and the whoever the president is, or your friend screwed you over, or this happened, or the music industry, or blah blah blah. You can like insert whatever excuse you can possibly think of. Ken, like you said, we're creatures of habit, and it's easy to go back to that old way of thinking. Don't allow that to happen in your life, though. Make a decision that this is what you're going to do, and it could be something besides music. It could be, it could be your relationship with your other half, right? For
Yeah.
all that matters, or it could be a business you're starting, or whatever it may be. It could be a goal that you have in your job, that you want to climb the chain, and you want to be the lead because you feel like that you will be a better leader. Well, make that your goal, but don't give up when things get tough. Okay. You've got to keep pressing forward and be willing to fall down and get back up. Ken, we wanted to add something, a quick thing to our podcast here, and I think we're going to start doing this. We wanted to just highlight a band or a song and share that with you, dude. So who is your band of the week or your song of the week here?
I was introduced to this band called Baroness
G.I. Joe.
a couple of months ago. It was introduced to actually by Elizabeth. She's got a taste for this kind of Mastodon like music. Yes. And I love Mastodon. Mastodon's very cool. But they actually just came out with I think they're coming out with a new album, and I was listening to this one called Last Word. The song, and the album is called Stone. I'm pretty excited about it. I like what they're doing. That's my choice. Do you have one for yourself?
I do, man. I just discovered a new band. The band is called The Fall of Me, and they're an American metal band. They're kind of like a dark melodic metal band with a little bit of goth to them. Female fronted metal band here.
Nice.
And the song I love, this is off their, I believe it's their first EP. Again, the band is called The Fall of Me. There's a song called Fall, and man, I just love that tune. The guitar in it is really cool. The girl's voice is phenomenal, but the guitar in it's really cool. It's kind of dark. You can tell he's got a little bit of chorus on the guitar parts there. But I discovered them through a good friend of mine's radio show. So there's a station, this radio show called ProgRock.com. And wow. We're not affiliated with them by any means, but ProgRock.com, my good friend Scott Neumeister, he's actually a full-time author, talking about people that are entrepreneurs and just making things happen. But he's also the host and DJ on a show every Monday. He goes by DJ Scott Loki, and every Monday from 10 to 12, and that's Central Time. So Ken, you and I are on Eastern Time, so it'd be 11 to 1. But yeah, so he was showcasing. He does a lot of prog metal during his show, and he was just showcasing some female fronted prog metal bands. So I discovered them, and actually I think the bass player was on. They have a Discord as well, so we're all chatting, and the bass player for The Fall of Me was on. So I chatted with him a bit there while I was listening, and
very cool.
Just looked up the band, and I'm like, man, they've got some cool stuff. So yeah.
Amazing. I think it's important to look into new music every once in a while and just expand your horizons. I mean, that's what we are here for, learning from each other. This is just a shout out to our Discord community members. Thanks to our mods, Emily and Bryden, you guys are doing a great job. And we have like the most supportive community that I've ever seen, and it's just been an amazing adventure to be able to grow with you guys too. I think we all understand the gravity of what we're talking about here on Metal Mastermind, and why we really promote what we promote, because at the core of what we do, it's trying to better ourselves, and we're just trying to help you guys do the same for yourself. So let's kick ass, man. This is what it's about, metaling up.
Let's do that, guys. And real quick before we head out, guys, remember to visit the metalmastermind.com website. click on courses. We've got all our courses out there for you, a ton of resources. We have a blog post on there as well with a lot of just good, free information out there. But if you're not, I want to highlight, if you're not in our Metal Songwriters Forge course, this is a complete metal songwriting course. Ken and I cover every single aspect. We even wrote and published a song under Metal Mastermind called You Are Your Master. You guys can look that up. But we showcase that song, breaking down that song and how we approached everything in that song. Of course, the course is not just about the song. We give you it's huge, guys. This is, Ken, I'd say this is like almost like going to college for a semester or something like that. But of course, for a fraction of the price you'd pay. But do check that out, Metal Songwriters Forge. We just made some major upgrades to the course as well. If you're in the course, you guys got that for free, no additional charge. But take a look at that course on metalmastermind.com. Guys, we appreciate you. As always, create your own sound.